All right. We on here?
Yep.
Excellent. See if we're going the right direction. All right. So, little introduction about ourselves. We already did that. We'll have barcodes at the end where you can scan that to connect with us in LinkedIn. So when we get to the end, we might have some other surprises there. But we're excited to share with you our journey and where we've landed today with developer experience and where it is at American Airlines, and hopefully some takeaways that you guys can have and connect with you guys. That's actually what Tim and I are really passionate about is not only just sharing with the community what we've learned, but also learning from you guys. It's because we're all going through challenges. Big corporations, it's hard, it's tough. And when we share and learn together, we make the whole community better. So we're excited about that. All right. So we work for American Airlines. We're world's largest airline. A really quick, interesting note on this is when you look at the passengers and the daily flights and everything that we have, it really comes into a logistical conversation. And so what that means is a lot of times our developers and our communities, they're really focused on trying to help, as Tim's new role is going to be like recovering from the airline when things happen. The interesting thing to note is we were doing this talk in DC when CloudStrike happened. So Tim and I were sitting in the airport. We were waiting to come back to Dallas, and we're watching, and we're like, wait, no planes are taking off. This is really eerie. What's going on? And then we started watching, we started looking at things like, hey, there's nothing scheduled to take off. And it was really interesting to watch and how different airlines responded to that event and being able to recover. And we're proud that we, the community that we brought together with American Airlines, that we jumped together, we helped to recover quickly, relatively quickly from that standpoint. But we're always trying to make that easier for our engineers. And that's the reason I share this with you is it's been a guiding principle as Tim and I have worked with developer experience, is making it so this airline right here that you see up here runs smooth, which leads us to our IT vision. And why everybody's probably asking and saying, why are we talking about an IT vision and all of this enterprise stuff at a developer experience talk? The reason is simple. When we understand what our product does for the airline, we're able to align ourselves to making those numbers change. And when we make those numbers change, the IT executives invest in your platform. So we look and say, hey, we're here to envision and engineer unrivaled digital products for the airline that drive reliability and profitability. But when we look at the amount of time that our engineers spend trying to find and do different things, and the pain and how hard it is for them to do that, and when we can make that easier, we can showcase to the executives and saying, hey, look, here's how our platform meets your goals. And by meeting your goals, you're going to invest in us. So that's the reasons why we're talking about that. All right, so now into the good stuff. Today, Tim and I are going to talk to you about what we did on optimizing for flow, how we talked about that, how we got to that, how we build a community at American Airlines and abroad, and then also our product management focus. So jumping right in, where are we today? So American Airlines, we've been on this journey for about 3 years, and I'm going to tell you about the achievements up front to capture your attention. So American Airlines, we have about 3,500 to 4,000 engineers across American Airlines. We have dozens of templates that what we've been able to accomplish is those dozens of templates have removed months of engineers' time. So previously we would work with engineers in the dojo community. My team would work with engineers and say, hey, let's get you guys onboarded into these tools that are going to help you be able to do your tests, do your coding, do your testing and your CI builds and your deployments and everything quicker. We would engage with teams for about 6 to 12 weeks. And out of those 6 to 12 weeks, we would easily spend 50% of the time going to different shared services teams throughout American Airlines and getting them onboarded. We'd have to go and open a ticket and push with one engineering team area and then another area and then another area. And then it would take up to, 3 to 4 weeks easy. Now that was with a lot of executive, we had a lot of support. And so we had the trump card where I can say, hey, we're with the dojo community, coaching community, and we need you guys to do this. And we would jump to the top of their backlogs. A lot of times that was the fast route. A lot of times it would take engineers a lot longer. So we've got templates that shave off months of work, and it gives you the outcome in minutes, 10 minutes. We've been able to build into this platform, we've been able to build in ephemeral environments. So as engineers are now working through their code changes and they want to get fast feedback, they hit the PR, and that PR spins up ephemeral environment based upon their Kubernetes manifest. and it spins it up. They can test it. They can look at it. They can link ephemeral environments together. So if you got a PR on a front end, a PR on a back end, you can link those together. And that has been able, and then when the PR is done, tears it down, and it's all good. So we've been able to save a lot of time with the ephemeral environments. Now, the really cool thing about this is that through our effort, out of 4,000 engineers, we get 50,000 site visits a month. Just about, or actually everybody in IT visits. We have 3,000 unique visitors at our platform. So I wanted to share that with you of what is possible, and then we will at the end talk about where we're going. So that's what we've accomplished. So let's talk a little bit about how we optimize for flow. So when you think about, when we thought about how we optimize for flow, what we did in the, we call it the hangar. Everything's branded at American Airlines. We have these brandings of like hangar, we've got Runway as we call it.
Runway's our application, our pipeline's taxiway.
Yep, taxiway. We've got another application that before you deploy to production, we call it Tower. It checks your all your checks to make sure everything's good. So we like branding with airline stuff. So in our hangar, our dojo coaching, what we did is we worked with the teams and we did what we called value stream mapping. This is really important, and the reason why it's really important is because we started focusing on the holistic or jobs to be done. So engineers would say, hey, we need to do X. It wasn't like we need to do these activities. I need this outcome. And we would work with the teams and we would map all of the different processes, all of the different teams, everything that they would need to do to get that done. And then when we got done, we looked at it and that's when we said, hey, this has taken months of time. And we're able to show that to executives. The important part about that is that we were able to start systematically improving the bottlenecks along the way, but it allowed us to be able to see holistically what it would take for an engineer to achieve that. So we were able to bring all of the right players together to have the conversation of like, hey, what would it take to automate this? And so when we talk about developer flow, it's not like, hey, I just need a GitHub repository. It's like, no, the developer is actually trying to deploy an application into production. I need a GitHub repository. I need a runtime. I need my CI/CD. I need my scans. I need my testing. I need all of that. I need networking. And so we're able to see that and bring that in and build that into our templates. The other part too, and this is, Tim does a really good job at this, is that abstracting away the hard stuff. And as a product manager, his relations throughout the organization was phenomenal in this. What we were able to do is we'd go to other platform teams. So think of your runtime team, think of your data team, and they were trying to onboard into their platforms. And we helped work with them and said, hey, we can help you guys make this easier so it was the same common place. And so we helped abstract away the hard stuff. The other part that we do, that we talk about quite a bit in there, is we live by the principle of making the cost of change low. Years ago, when I visited Barclays, there was a gentleman that had said that the road to DevOps is littered with tools. What that means is that tools are going to come and go. They're always going to be rotating out. There's always going to be a new vendor. And when you're always constantly, there was a question yesterday on the panel that says, what is the biggest impact to developer productivity? My point of view on that is going to be the constant swapping out of tools where teams have to always adopt a new tool and you force them to. And so one of the things that we've tried to do and that we look at is how can we abstract away that cost of change from our engineers? So like in our pipelines, we're like, hey, we're going to get a different tool. Got a different image scanning tool. Well, our pipelines abstract that away and we can actually then say, hey, we're going to make this change to where then now they just hit a new version and you've got a different vendor. It makes it a lot easier. Do you want to add anything on that, Tim?
No, I think you're doing great.
Okay. Now, the other part here is really, really important. When you talk about product management, and we'll get into this a little bit more, engineers love to solve problems. But if you can't figure out how to solve the problem, or if engineers can't figure out how to use it, or it's easy to consume, they won't come. It's not a you build it and they will come. You have to have this. And this is actually when we brought in our UX designer. We got, she actually won the Sonos speaker, Alex, this morning. But this is when we brought in the UX designer to help us to say, hey, can the engineers figure out how to use this? Will they use it? And it was helping us solve those problems. So you've got to make sure that it's easy to find and consume. All right.
Yeah, so let's talk about how we got there. So this is a rule that I've kind of coined. I call it something a little different internally. So like our DevX platform rule is whenever a developer presses the button, they get what they asked for. No tickets, no emails, no approvals, no exceptions. We have a few now. I don't like to admit that. But for the most part, no exceptions. So what does that mean? So early on, one of our very first plugins, someone comes to our ticketing system. They've got a VM. They don't have enough disk space. They want more disk space. They go to Sharewell. They submit a ticket. It takes about a week to get through the queuing system. Eventually, the team that has access to the server goes and extends the disk space, and you have a bigger server. Yay, we're happy. So like that was one of the first things we brought into our platform, where you actually have it inside of our system. When they click the button, our system has access to the production system to extend the file system, and they get what they asked for. So like something as simple as that. It can also be something much more complex, like when it comes to our software templates. Someone wants to deploy to production and they want a new system. They can go in, they can create a resource group. They can create a service principal in Azure that has access to that resource group and has like full control of that resource group. The secrets for that are injected into their GitHub repo. Soon it'll be injected into their HashiCorp vault. And then over on the other side, like on our Kubernetes automation side, we then inject those secrets back into their pods. So like they pressed one button and they got all of these things that they wanted. And they didn't have to go figure it out on their own or like try to solve that on their own. So like we want to solve like big integration problems at the platform level, so that teams aren't individually solving them. And like as you start adding up the math, like the numbers get pretty mind-boggling across 3,000 engineers and a couple hundred teams of like how much time people were spending on that. So that's our rule. There are, like I said, a few exceptions. We still try to avoid them where we can. There are a lot of areas where it's like, okay, this thing is like really expensive. We don't necessarily want to let everybody do that. So they have to go prove that they've done their due diligence first. Once that information is in the system, then they can click the button. We just don't let them click the button until that's occurred. So things like that are pretty common across the platform.
That exception that we had there was we made that exception because they threatened to go somewhere else. And it was more important for us to keep the platform together and to keep the community together than to actually adhere to it. So that's why some of the exceptions, like, rather than fracturing the community and fracturing the system, is like, we can bend on that one a little bit.
But yeah, the key is like, you want to make it really nice and enjoyable for developers to work with your platform, and then they'll come and use it. So that was kind of key for us. So let's talk about like how we get here. Like Runway's great. We love Runway. Could talk about it all day, but let's talk about like how we got here. We're 3.5-4 years in. So like when we first started out, we were like, okay, let's build a community and let's figure out like what they need. So like when we first looked at it, we did some mapping of our users and we came up with 2 buckets. We have more buckets than this now, but like these are the 2 buckets that we came up with. We had product teams that were trying to deliver software. So like AA.com teams. And then we had shared service teams that were providing shared services like databases and things like that. And we're like, okay, these are 2 people that we need to help in different ways. A lot of our shared services teams are like database administrators, systems administrators, like people who had written like Bash scripts, Python scripts, but had never written a lick of like front-end code in their lives. So it's like, we go to them and it's like, hey, you can just write a plugin in Runway. There's some React. And then their eyes gloss over and they say no. And we weren't able to bring them in. So we said, okay, how do we build for those people internally so that they're able to contribute? So Ben's team has roughly about 30 engineers total. Assigned to the platform is probably closer to 10. But like our actual unique contributor count to the overall platform is over 150. So like to be able to build a platform like this, you can't do it alone. You need to bring along the other people in your company. So like treating those shared service team members as customers and like really feeling out their pain points is very important. So we have a fairly robust software development kit for contributing back to Backstage. We provide both backend plugins, front-end plugins, and we make very easy drop-in tags for people to use in their plugins. And if they're not able to do it, we do one of 2 things. We either build it for them and show them how it was built, or we take 1 or 2 engineers and assign those engineers to their team for a few months. And I'm not days, like months, so that they can learn and like bring that expertise in-house. And now they become like regular contributors back to your platform because you invested in them. So if you're able to do that, I think that is like super key of being able to work with them. So next phase from that is like, okay, you're working with your teams. Feedback is super key. We did a lot of different things. So we created shared spaces for engagement. We have our own Slack channel. It's the #1 opt-in Slack channel in American Airlines. Over 1,000 users like choose to join our Slack channel and communicate with us and have fun with us. We have weekly demos So every Thursday, or actually every other Thursday now, it used to be weekly, we're now bi-weekly, now that we're further in our journey, we have an hour-and-a-half demo and discovery. So we show off the new things that people have asked for, and then we ask them what they're looking for in ways that we can help them improve. We do events, we do stickers, we do all kinds of different things like that. One of my favorite ones, that you can probably see it on my laptop here, is a sticker that has like our logo plus an airplane on it. We actually paid a company to create like a number of different animated designs that we then use across like our marketing material. So it's like ways to like get people excited and to have fun with it. Ben mentioned our UX designer, Alex, that we brought in. She spends like, I'd probably say probably half of her time just doing interviews and surveys. So it's like most people think UX design is about like writing pretty UIs. It's not that at all. It's about finding out like how your users are going to use your system and making it super easy for them to find what they want. So you may have noticed, for those with a keen eye, on our screenshots earlier, we had 2 different screenshots of Runway. On the left-hand side of it, we had one nav bar that had 1 million things on it. Users couldn't find anything because we had so many plugins. There were just 30 plugins straight down the left side of the screen. The second one was broken up into about 6 different sections that were organized and categorized and then sorted the way that people tend to navigate it. And our designer goes back after she builds this out and does testing and says, okay, can people actually find what they're looking for this way? And we don't actually make that full switch until we've determined, yes, users are able to do this. There's a humbling experience that I had. So I am personally not super good at UX design. Yes, I'm a software engineer. Yes, I'm a product manager, but I'm not super good at it, but I thought I was. So super humbling. So we had a scenario. We had a feature that we wanted to bring in where like the feature is like super mundane. It's basically someone can take where their Kubernetes manifest file is and say, instead of looking for it here with Argo CD, look for it over here. And they just want to change the location. Like super mundane. So I went to our catalog and I was like, all right, Argo stuff is here. We put it here. They click this button. Here's where it shows it. They just click another button there and it's good. Alex looks at it and she's like, I don't think so. I was like, no. That's definitely where it goes. She's like, okay. She's like, we can find out tomorrow if this is the correct move. I'm going to create a quick little click test. And I'm going to ask people the question that you asked me, like, where should you go? And like overnight, like she was able to get like 30 or 40 people to do the click test. We got the results back. One person clicked where I said it would be. And that was me. It was me. I was the only one. Literally everybody else clicked where she said that they would probably click. But she still went through the expertise of finding out that that was the correct place. And now that feature is over there. And it makes it quite a bit easier for people to work with that. So I thought that was like a super cool story.
Yeah, the key thing about this is we're talking about the feedbacks is continually challenging your assumptions. And we as engineers, we build things and we build it in a way like, of course, this is the way that we're going to use it. But you never know until you engage with your users, and you want to engage with them early and often so you don't build something and spend months and months building something that they're never going to use, or it's not even an intuitive space. And that was very humbling for both of us.
Yep. All right. So let's talk about like a little bit further. So giving back. We are avid, I don't know what's the word, but like we contribute quite a bit to open source. Like we're advocates for open source. We contribute back to Backstage Core quite a bit. We do that both through participating in user group studies with them. We do that through contributing code directly. We recommend features. We work with them on their Discord channel. That's pretty common. We also have like entire plugins that we have written that we have open sourced. In this scenario, like our main plugin that we open sourced was an Argo CD management plugin. We actually open sourced it through Roadie, and they are the primary maintainers, but we're still probably 80, 90% of the code contributions to that plugin. So like this is something that's very important to us. If you are going to work in the DX platform space, I recommend you do that as well. Mainly because I want to use your stuff. I appreciate you. So like this is very, very key and something that I would recommend.
There's a key principle on here, and Carl's here with us today. Our senior principal architect is I've worked with him and we talk about different functionalities and things. There's always a question of build versus buy and all of that conversations. And one of the principles that Carl has always talked to us about is said, look, I would rather contribute back to upsource or upstream in open source and then consume it in than to build it ourselves. Yeah. That way we can still get the benefit of using it, but we also help the community out. And that's been huge in how we've been able to give back. Is like, hey, if this makes sense, contribute it back to the open source community and then pull it in. And that's been one of the driving principles we've had from an architect, from an engineering standpoint.
Yeah. So one more thing I want to add on to that. So we've had an interesting journey over the last 3.5, 4 years with this platform. So we've essentially found problems and just kind of attacked them. where they were at, whether they were our problems or not. So like we talked about like assigning engineers to other teams. Like we've done that with like setting up HashiCorp Vault automation, all kinds of stuff like that. We've also done the other route where we've built entire capabilities and then spun those off as their own teams. So Carl, our senior principal architect, built like a really interesting like Kubernetes automation framework for migrating workloads across clusters and then automatically bootstrapping clusters. We ended up spinning that off as its own team that is now a team that is as large as Ben's, probably 20, 30 people dedicated to just managing shared clusters internally. We also built out our own custom Kubernetes operators. We have 3 or 4 of them these days. Like our Kubernetes manifest files, like for deploying on our shared platform, for most teams is 12 to 15 lines total. So for those of you that know Kubernetes, it's usually dozens of files, dozens of lines per file. All of it is abstracted away because like we have a way of deploying within American Airlines that fits our security models and our needs. And it's just super easy for teams to follow that. So like all of those Kubernetes operators are now managed by another team that we've spun off. And that's probably 6 people now, something like that.
Yeah, it's 6.
Where they are managing that and like they report to a different part of the organization, and we continuously look for that because like our interest is like, how do we make this really easy for developers? We don't have to own the kingdom. We just want to participate in it.
Yeah, and in that conversation, when we were talking about product management, you look at like aligning your capabilities to the overall product, and they had a team that was your Kubernetes team, which was doing the operations, and then we were doing a lot of the automation. As we talked to them and we looked, and with my leaders, we looked at it and said, hey, what do you guys think? And we ultimately agreed and said, hey, this capability aligns with the Kubernetes team. And then there was conversations about, well, what about the engineering aspect of it? And it says, well, there's these set of engineers that we have trained and have brought. And so we send over a principal engineer with them and 3 or 4 other engineers to the team and said, hey, I know it's on us where we are giving this away, but you know what? This is more important that it's aligned to the product and that product group, because then they can drive the vision and it's able to help. And also, when you're talking about feedback, is we were getting feedback from our engineers on the Runway team is they're context switching and trying to maintain Backstage, Kubernetes, TypeScript, all of these different things was really, it was a lot. And they said, hey, we need to focus on some areas. So that was our first attempt on that.
Yep. All right. Let's talk product management. So just want to go over like a few things over the years that we've worked on. So one of the first things that we had when like our platform started looking cool, our CIO at the time, she came to it and she's like, this is amazing. I'm going to mandate everybody use it. And I panicked. I absolutely panicked. Like my biggest worry was that like when it comes to like learning about your product, there are only a few ways to do it. You can learn about it through failure. You can get lucky, or you can mandate it. Like that's how like people can start. You can get people to use your product. And like we were super worried that if it was mandated, we wouldn't have empathy for our customer and we wouldn't have drive to earn their business. So we avoided that mandate for basically 3 years now. We're probably going into our 4th year. We're probably getting close to the point that our CIO is going to mandate the platform. And we're okay with that.
There's a nuance. In that.
There's lots of nuances to it. But like our thoughts are that like innovative work comes from product management focus and product management design.
Nuance. Oh, go ahead. Finish.
No, go ahead, please.
The nuance on the mandate is that we work with our security teams, our standards teams, our enterprise architects to mandate a standard, and then our platform makes that standard easy. So it's what we're not doing is not mandating the platform is we're making it easy. Like, hey, here's the standard. You can do it on your own, or you can use this. And so it's hey, let's get the standards in place, and then we make what standards we have in place easy to use. So we make the default easy.
Yep. So wouldn't be a product management talk without talking about Crossing the Chasm. If you guys haven't read this book, highly recommend it. So when it comes to our platform, like we've gone through this adoption lifecycle multiple times, depending on what we're doing. Our first year focus was primarily on what tickets are being submitted and what wait time do developers have. So it's like we want to take the wait time and get it as small as possible to give developers time back to work on what they're wanting and to stay within context, like under the short time. So like we had early innovators, early adopters through that. It took us about a year until we got to the late majority, where like the vast majority of people were coming to our platform looking for something that was in the ticketing system, hoping we had it, so they didn't have to go do a ticket. Within our second years, when we started our Kubernetes automation, it took us probably 2 years to get into the early adopters, early majority area. We went from 10 adopters our first year to where now in our third year, we're around 200 product teams have at least one application deployed on our shared Kubernetes instance. We have about 600 or 700 to go, but like that feels pretty good for us. Like we feel like we've kind of crossed the chasm there. And now we're starting to look into other areas where it's like, okay, what's the next big thing that we can focus on? Ben and I have spent a lot of time over the last month reading lots of different articles, trying to come up with like our 2025 focus of, hey, like, how do we continue to drive adoption and engagement and things like that? So like understanding the market adoption curve, super important. Read Moore's books if you haven't. It will help you for sure.
Something exciting, somewhat exciting about this slide is, as I mentioned, that Tim recently took a new role as a senior principal architect. The area he took a role in falls into that late majority or even like rejecting our platform. And so as he took the role, I looked at him and I said, I expect high things from you. And then within a month, he's like, Ben, I would like this, I'd like this, and I'd like this. And I'm like, great. So we're excited that we can now start bringing, we have somebody from the inside to be able to start bringing that in to say, hey, here's what your platform can do for us. And then what we can, how we can make it better. Is that a 2-minute sign left? Okay.
All right. So how? Determine what's important, measure it, then focus relentlessly on it. So like we've had different measures throughout the few years. We set them every quarter to every year, depending on like what the measure is and where we're at. So figure out where you're at on the adoption curve, measure it, and then focus relentlessly on getting there. And then let's talk about where we are today.
So back to the slide we started.
Yeah. So back to the side, like you can't really see on this screen too well, maybe on the other screens, our bar, our side nav bar has changed quite a bit. So again, over 50,000 site visits a month, certified templates saving like months of work across the company, 200 apps, like we said. So we've increased our runtime platform adoption by 2,000% over 2 years. The ephemeral non-prod environments we're super excited about. We don't have quite as many teams using that, but I don't know. It was super cool. Like when Carl actually designed it, came up with that to where like literally every single PR has its own ephemeral environment that we're able to use. So like we can run automation tests against that ephemeral environment. We can do manual checkouts for UI-based things. So that's been super cool. And our future.
So when we talk about looking at our future, we're excited about continuing to build on our software templates. One of the areas that we're starting to dive into is that as we've talked to other companies and we've learned what they've done with Backstage is the catalog and bringing the different components and bringing that together. So we're going to dive a lot more into that. That's an area that Tim actually brought to us and said, hey, I recently had an outage and it took me forever. We call it Easter egg hunts to try and figure out, hey, where are all these different things? So catalog is something we're looking to do. We're looking to build in more automated delivery governance. So within the pipelines and being able to have that attestations and using SigStore and stuff like that to building in our automated delivery governance. We're going to be using the platform to help with as standards are built to be able to help people adopt to and get to those standards and then be able to showcase how they're measuring to those standards. But we're also very excited to continue to build this community. It's a fun community. We love giving back. We love sharing. We love learning from that. So that's what we're excited about there.
Yeah, and I would say like one of the things that I've asked Ben is like daily utility is something that we're starting to focus on as well. Right now today, when somebody has a question, they're like, hey, is this going on the company? I want the response to be, did you check Runway? Like, we're currently looking into like ways to redesign our homepage, make it more persona based and more personable to you so that you can get the information you were looking for quickly.
Yep.
Another thing is like documentation. Like we are heavily rewriting all of our documentation based on learning styles. So we've like broken up our people that like to use the platform based on how they like to learn. And we figured out ways to create documentation that will cater to different learning styles. So we're focusing on that as well.
Yep. Alrighty. And so you'll notice it on this slide here, something a little bit different than the first slide. Anybody know what it is? The hair. So if you're going to join and do an IDP, you're going to be prepared to lose your hair.
Yeah. Dev platform took my hair.
Yep. It took both. He went first and then he convinced me that I needed to shave my head. So, but thank you guys. And we look forward to connecting with you. If anybody's interested in any demos or talking to us, connect with us on LinkedIn. We're more than happy to share, talk to you about what we've done, and learn from you guys as well.